welcome viewers to this twin lectures on Harappan Civilization, and we would be talking about not the sequential archaeological cultures leading to the argument of local origins for Harappan Civilization, but we would be discussing several other aspects of this vexed issue of origins, particularly the local origins of Harappan Civilization that came to flourish in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent in around 2500 BCE and went on up to 1700 BCE, and thereafter we see some bit of dilapidated structures in archaeological records and the urban features receiving some kind of a decline. So this mature phase that is very much prominently present in archaeological records, what is the way in which an archaeologist or a historian should see the origin of this? So, as you would understand that when the civilization was discovered as part of archaeological excavations, it was pre-independent times that it happened in the 1920s and so forth. The dominant narrative at that point of time, of course, was Eurocentric, and it was just not kind of proposed that this civilization could have developed on its own on account of preceding developments, say prior to 2500 BC in this area and so forth, and we did not have any credible archaeological culture also in this area which could have accounted for this. But with the discovery of Mehergarh as the earliest Neolithic site belonging to this area only, where subsequently we have flourishing of this magnificent Bronze Age civilization in the name of Harappan Civilization, Mehergarh happens to be very much in this area itself that subsequently through the Harappan Civilization. And the dates of Mehergarh go as back as up to 7000 BCE, and it is right from here that we see earliest instance of Neolithic developments, that is herding of animals, domestication of animals, domestication of plants, mud brick houses, some kind of sedentary village settlements, and it continues almost sequentially without any hiatus. Now, hiatus in archaeological terms refers to some kind of a break between two levels of archaeological debris. So, suppose a site is abandoned after habitation for quite some time, and say sometime later in history people come to live over that area. So in archaeological, the vertical excavation archaeological profile will show no debris in some layers, and that is symptomatic of the fact that perhaps people were not living at that particular site for a significantly long period of time, and then some community at a different level of social and historical development came to inhabit that area. So that is not there in Mehergarh right from 7000 BCE down to say 3200 BCE, or taking it up to the 4th century millennium or 4th millennium BCE. We have continuous habitation of this site. And alongside, subsequently towards the say Mehergarh 2, Mehergarh 3 periods, that is closer to 5000, 4000 BCE in this area, we find some kind of a mushrooming of several other Neolithic sites in the vicinity. So Mehergarh as a site did not continue right down to the mature phase of Harappan civilization, but before it terminates, as Mehergarh III, that is closer to the present, it had already seen, or this area had already seen several other Neolithic communities in this area, where subsequently we have Harappan civilization developing around 2500 BC in its mature phase, in its very impressive urban phase. As I said, that when this discovery of this civilization was made, the initial propositions and narratives were dominated by Eurocentrism, and it was believed that a society or a community in the subcontinent might not had enough to contribute in origin terms to this civilization, and formative impulses could have come from somewhere else. By that time, of course, the Mesopotamian Bronze Age civilization was already known, the Egyptian Bronze Age civilization was already known. So it was presumed that maybe that some formative impulses are coming from there, because this civilization, Harappan civilization, did betray several evidence of contact with its Mesopotamian counterpart, and it was also believed that they were already existing at a point of time when this civilization emerged. So the narrative was that the urban impulses or several other civilizational impulses could have traveled from there, and it's only as a consequence of this that we find flourishing of this civilization around 2500 BCE in this area. But with the discovery of Mehergarh and its continuance over several millennia, down up to 3200 BCE, and thereafter mushrooming of several civilizations in this area, several Neolithic cultures in this area, there is this argument of incremental development, or materially these cultures, these preceding cultures or antecedent cultures are getting more powerful in the sense of subsistence economy, capacity to generate little bit of surplus because there are some storage facilities, and then quite a few symbols, motifs, which we otherwise regard as part of the cultural domain. They are also very much anticipated in these Neolithic communities. Anticipated in the sense because when we think of Harappan civilization, we think of, say, people leaf symbol, or several other symbols that are almost characteristic of the urban phase of the civilization. And if those motifs and symbols already have antecedents in the preceding Neolithic cultures in this area, then this argument can be built that it points towards slow, incremental, local basis of development of Harappan civilization more than anything else. So these are the two lines of arguments that are used to account for the origin of Harappan civilization, and these two discussions that we today have, these two lectures, will focus more on the local origins. And as I said in the beginning, that it is less about several sites which are early Harappan sites or Neolithic sites or even Chalcolithic sites in the vicinity preceding Harappan civilization, but more about several arguments, several vexed issues, several debates, and also points that seek to reset the contours of this debate about the local origins. So we would be talking more about that, and maybe in some other interaction that I have with you, we will take up for a sequential, very neat kind of progression of pre-Harappa or early Harappa or the preceding Neolithic, Chalcolithic cultures in this area, which again goes on to support the argument of local origins of this civilization. Now, as you can see on your slide, if you look at the site of Mehergarh, now Mehergarh is a site which is located in what would be present-day Pakistan. If you look at the physical map of India, there would be a place referred to as CB Triangle, close to Bolan Pass, and the geographical specifics or geography specifics of Mehergarh as a site we will talk about, and it is important to understand the geography and ecology of Mehergarh in order to make sense of this site as the earliest Neolithic site in the Indian subcontinent. And the perspective with which we look at the details of this site is obviously, for obvious reasons, colored by the fact that we start seeking the validity of the local origin issue of Harappan civilization from the findings of Mehergarh and the vicinity or the Neolithic communities that also mushroomed in the vicinity of Mehergarh. So Mehergarh gives us a very long occupation as a Neolithic site, as I just told you, right from 7000 BC onwards to 4th millennium BCE. There is continuous stratigraphic sequence, which again I just discussed in terms of absence of any hiatus. It's a continuously evolving Neolithic site that we get to see archaeologically. If you read any textbook, it would be designated as Neolithic 1, Neolithic 2, Neolithic 3. Neolithic 3 taking you up to 3200 BC or 3800 BCE, and before that the timelines 7000 to 5000, 5000 to 4000, 4000 to 3000, something of that sort. So there is some kind of deepening of quite a few aspects of Neolithic life, and also lateral spread of the site, the size of the site. So as you move from Mehergarh 1 layer to Mehergarh 2 layer, which is closer to the present, and Mehergarh 2 to Mehergarh 3, you find that the site size, the habitation site size, goes on increasing. And all these things have some kind of historical pertinence. These archaeological details have historical pertinence in the sense that if you have a bigger Neolithic site, it means that the carrying capacity of the economy during the period, which is about agriculture and animal husbandry and domestication of animals and so forth, it has that much of economic wherewithal to sustain a bigger territory or sustain a larger set of people, right? So it goes on to prove economic robustness or subsistence robustness of the period. So there is continuous stratigraphic sequence and its artifactual correlations with other sites in Baluchistan and Sindh. Now you have to understand this. If you look at Mehergarh, the site, to the west of Mehergarh you have Baluchistan, and to the east of Mehergarh, or Mehergarh itself is situated in the Indus plains, so it's a plain area. But to the west, the Baluchistan area is a rugged, broken terrain, and it's you can say the eastern outcrop of the Indo-Iranian plateau, right? So geographically, in Indo-Iranian plateau terminates to the west of Mehergarh, and Mehergarh itself is connected to the Indus plain, which is a plain area with possibility of agriculture to its east. So there is some kind of a confluence point that we are talking of in terms of two separate, disparate geographical niches, right? So the niche of floodplains and the niche of broken terrain, Indo-Iranian plateau, which has a long history of animal herding in the sense of goat and sheep herders, right? So there are herding communities who had been living in this Indo-Iranian plateau for in past before 7000 BCE, and they would seasonally descend into the floodplain areas, particularly in winter months, for grazing purpose, and two distinct kinds of communities could have come together, could have interacted. Now, this interaction could have taken whatever shape given the historical specificities, but it seems that some bit of cooperation and exchange could have triggered and so forth. So, it is in this sense that geography of Mehergarh is important for us to understand. Therefore, the continuous archaeological progression from a village economy to Harappan civilization is something which is proposed out of the continuous stratigraphic sequence that is discovered at Mehergarh from Mehergarh 1 to Mehergarh 3, indicating a very general deepening of agriculture and more dependence on domesticated animals for food rather than hunting and gathering and so forth. Something related to sedentarization of life, something related to rites and rituals flourishing thereafter after initial couple of phases of Neolithic life in Mehergarh and so forth. And it is presumed that it is as a consequence of this slow incremental development that eventually around 2500 BC something as big as Harappan civilizational complex could develop in this area. So be it the subsistence pattern, be it the variety of species of plants, animals, and even motifs, cultural motifs and symbols, pottery, ceramic traditions and so forth, the brick use traditions in building houses, etc. They were perhaps anticipated already, or the formative phase of that had already been seen in the Neolithic period. So this is the thesis that is proposed. Now, we are just trying to understand as to what must have happened, triggering this change where people took to agriculture in a big way in the Indian subcontinent for the first time. So, whatever we get to see at Mehergarh, and if we are trying to make sense of it as to how this transformation must have happened, well, if we look at several other disciplines to guide us in resolving or making sense of this transition, what we find is that general laws of history and anthropology tell us that urbanism is not possible without a state level of political organization. So, if we think that it is slow, incremental, material affluence of Neolithic cultures over several millennia that existed at Mehergarh and in the adjoining areas that eventually around 2500 BC led to flourishing of the Harappan civilization, which was highly urbanized and trade dependent and so forth, well, we need to understand this with greater degree of finesse and sensitivity and detail, because Harappan civilization from 2500 BC onwards is understood as a urban complex. It's not a culture, it's a civilization, right? And urbanism historically or in anthropology, or anthropologists tell us that urbanism does not trigger this way. There has to be a state level of political organization. And in the absence of state level of political organization, it is just not possible to have a sophisticated urban complex like the one we had in Harappa. So we need to understand quite a few other things over and beyond the dry archaeological artifacts that come to us through these Neolithic pre-Harappan sites. But this political state-like institution, how did it come about? What could be the antecedents of this? Do we have evidence related to it? Of course, we are talking of prehistory, and we don't have the luxury of having literary sources to understand this. So we will have to depend on several other circumstantial evidence, ecological niche, the logical way in which things or loose points can be connected to weave a logical narrative which is consistent with whatever other evidence that we gather over this period of time at the site or in the adjoining sites and so forth. So the actual modus operandi of this transformation to agricultural way of life in the case of Harappa is not known. And we still don't know as to what happened around say 3rd millennium BCE, which led to this transformation of an otherwise reasonably well entrenched Neolithic / Chalcolithic communities to transform themselves, to catapult themselves to the level of a civilizational complex, which is a Bronze Age civilization. So, if you look at M.R. Mughal's work or F.R. Olchin's work, they suggest strong continuity of artifactual components between the urban and its antecedent periods in terms of ceramics, use of exotic materials, wheeled transport, and so forth. So, here again, these arguments support the argument of local origins for Harappan civilization, because the artifacts with which we tend to identify urban Harappa is already anticipated in the pre-Harappan layers in this area, be it ceramics, use of exotic materials, or even wheel transport. So these are some of the things that we need to be talking about, and in the next part of this lecture we will talk about some of the early Harappan details, early Harappan period details, geographical specificities in which pre-Harappan Neolithic complexes emerged. Then also the degree of homogeneity, then again whether this continuity itself can account for or can very neatly and coherently account for efflorescence of an urban civilization, or are there missing links that need to be bridged, that need to be plugged before we start arguing with certitude as to what came from where and what was responsible for what in triggering or in transforming a robust set of Neolithic communities into, or catapulting these Neolithic communities or sites or cultures into civilizational state. Where disparate areas are interlinked, trade, commerce, urbanism is very much visible. So, these issues are to be understood as part of this discussion, and we will take up these issues in next part of this lecture. Thank you.